Welcome to Unmuted, the Midlife Roundtable. I'm Serena Haynes, certified sexologist. I'm here with Amanda, our menopause specialist, Deborah, the creator and woman extraordinaire of the Pleasure Pods herself, and our new addition and going to be coming in quite often, another menopause consultant, Lisa. Lisa, why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners really quickly before we move on so everyone knows who we are?
Hi, thanks, Serena. I really appreciate being welcomed into this group of incredible women. I'm Lisa Boat, a certified menopause coach and consultant. I primarily work with organizations helping them create menopause empowered workplaces and supporting partners and partnerships through this transition. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Amazing. Thank you for being here. We will have you on quite a bit, so we're really excited to have you on the team. So, on Unmuted, we are unpacking why shows like this matter and why the National Menopause Show, what women really need in their midlife care, their mental health, sexual wellness, and those no one told me perimenopause symptoms. So, today we're joined by Angela MacGregor, the founder of the National Menopause Show, event director, Macgregor Communications.
Mhm.
The event bridges the gap between the medical community and the patient for the woman in her 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond. They have healthcare providers who truly understand menopause and perimenopause, educating these women for 2 whole days. The full exhibit floor is curated with products and services to help make you feel better, learn more about what's going on in your body. It's about your health, aging with power, knowledge, and creating a path forward for longevity. In addition to helping to educate women, the event is now educating healthcare providers as well with clinical education opportunities. So, welcome, Angela. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. I know the last week, and just prior to that, you were in Anaheim. Is there anything that you would like to share with us about why you created this show, what it was that kind of brought you to this space?
Sure. Really, this show was born out of necessity. I suffered with perimenopausal symptoms. Unbeknownst to me, I didn't realize they were perimenopausal symptoms for many years. And there was weight gain, hair loss. I lost a tooth, back pains. I mean, the symptoms went on and on and on. I didn't know what I was going to do. And there was a lot of self-blame. I blamed myself all the time. I shouldn't have eaten that piece of cake. I should go to bed earlier. I shouldn't have had a glass of wine. Why did I yell at my husband again? There's so many things that I look back on and I think, oh my gosh, if I had just had the help then. So I found a doctor that could help me and I was prescribed hormones. And hormones aren't the be all end all. There's other things you can do, but for me, that seemed to be the right path. And there was just the skies opened up. I realized that there's so many women out there that are suffering, and doctors in North America, it's not part of their curriculum in med school, perimenopause and menopause. If they learn anything, it's very, very little. So we as a society are really at a disadvantage. We haven't been taught in school perimenopause and menopause. We learn about the birds and the bees, and our healthcare providers have not really had the education. So I felt that a lot of us were floundering. So I went to my husband who's been producing conferences, more B2B for the last 40 years. And I said, we need to do something. We need to help educate women and bring together the healthcare providers that are going to help with our knowledge and just close the gap between the patient and the healthcare providers. So that's how it was born.
That's amazing, Angela, and you're so right. Even on the panels that we have on Unmuted, there's so many experts that can come in and have these conversations with people, and not everybody knows everything, right? And it's really important to know that we need to build that team. So let's get into talking about what it looks like to build your menopause care team. Angela, when we have these shows, what are you hearing the women asking for most? Like, where are the gaps that you're noticing the most when it comes to building this menopause care team?
Right. There are a lot of gaps. Firstly, women in their perimenopausal state, they need to be educated that some of these symptoms are, in fact, perimenopause. Not all the time. You do have to check with your healthcare provider, but there's women that are experiencing all this and they don't know it. Women in menopause once they've transitioned to a menopausal state, And what a lot of women don't understand is when you're in menopause for life. It does not go away. It's staying with you until we leave this earth. And there's so much we can do to help. So those women that consider themselves finished, they're not finished. There's a lot of support out there that they should seek. Is educating women at different ages. And there's always new members that come up the ranks. We have a responsibility at the National Menopause Show to provide that education and to get the message out that perhaps you're going into perimenopause and menopause. There's lots of things you can do to support your journey in your 50s, 60s, 70s. There's a lot of things you can do. And science is changing. I believe this show has really brought to the forefront that there needs to be more education for doctors, for the public, and that includes our spouses as well. So
Yeah, I
it's not
totally
just
agree.
about women.
I totally agree with you. And also just that idea that this isn't just the blip on the radar, right? Like this is now what we do for the rest of our lives. So, Deb, do you have anything that you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think Angela brings a really good point up is that for me, because I'm in menopause and I have been in menopause for 12 years now, is that when I went to my doctor a year and a half ago to say I need to get on HRT, she's like, I'm not doing it. And I knew that was just merely from her lack of education. And I'm like, well, I have done my research. I have spoken to other doctors and read books and so forth. And I know that I'm okay to do this. So I have to go to my naturopath. And I'm finding now that there's more natural paths than there are actual doctors that are doing this. And what I love is I can go to the Menopause Society. They have a list of all the doctors right now. And the sad thing, out of 15,000 doctors in Ontario, there's less than 0.5% that are actually have their certification through the Menopause Society. And Amanda can speak to this because she wrote the exam to be certified to say that they can speak to and talk about menopause in an educational way. And that really saddens me. Now there are these great online clinics that are offered to women that they can go to if they can't get into an office, which in a lot of cases you can't. If I can go online, that's even more convenient. I was really happy to see that being represented at the Menopause Show.
Yeah, that is a really good thing. And it's also such a great thing that, not to say that we need to take it out of the hands of the medical practitioners, but the fact that there are so many other core people involved in the team, there's so many things that we can talk about, right? So Amanda was going to talk about, the core team roles and what, how many people do we actually have that are involved in this that can help us out?
Yeah, so I don't know if Angela, how familiar you are with the work that I do, but I am a registered nurse and the work I do is a lot of work in the community, working with family health teams and community health programs and community health centers to provide education to women in the menopause space in the community. And a lot of the things I see were a lot of things that I heard at the show from even some of the women that I had a chance to speak with in sharing the work that I do. And a lot of them are like, we don't know where to go. We don't know where to get this education. We don't know where to start. And a lot of the workshops that I offer for these health teams really focuses on giving that education and leaving the women feeling like they've got some good information to take to their healthcare providers to start that conversation with their doctors. As Deb was saying, there really isn't a whole lot of menopause certified doctors in Ontario. Where I live in Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, it's a region of 800,000 people. There's 2 doctors here that you can find on the Menopause Society page. That being said, yes, a lot of naturopathic doctors have stepped up, and they've also included nurse practitioners within their practices so that they can manage the hormone therapy pieces. And I'm really happy to see that a lot of that was also represented at the menopause show too. So a lot of these other avenues of how people can get educated. My goal is education for a lot of these women. So I also offer the online one-to-one coaching, and that's also because I'm a personal trainer at the same time. So I've married the nursing and the personal training together to be able to offer women who want that little extra care and offer them something more from a holistic standpoint. So, to even see that there were personal trainers there or other people in that space as well, it really offered a holistic view of what menopause treatment really should look like, right? It's not just about having that doctor, it's about having the people there to educate you. It's about having maybe that personal trainer there to help you with your fitness. It's about having access to someone who understands nutrition and menopause. Sometimes you have, a pelvic physiotherapist because you have to manage those GSM symptoms. So it's really, really important that women understand that, you know, looking after ourselves in menopause isn't just a singular thing, that it's actually multifaceted and layered, right? We also need, some of us may need to access counseling. I know a lot of the psychosocial things that happen in menopause is really important, getting that education out into the workplaces, because having our workplaces, needing to be involved with them so that they can understand the menopausal woman in the workplace. So it's very important that all of these people come together to support the menopausal woman from all spaces of life.
Yeah, and I think that's so important to understand that all I ever heard growing up was HRT. That's all I heard. But I didn't hear anything about nutrition and sleep and all of these other things. On top of that, a lot of us are in partnerships, right? So I work in the sexual wellness industry. I'm a sexologist working with people all of the time. And 80% of my clients that come in are men specifically who are saying things like, not in the menopausal world necessarily, but long-term relationships, even short-term, can I get more of my sensuality out of my sex life, out of this intimacy with a partner? Lisa, you work quite a bit with what it looks like to have your partner on board as well, because we're not an island, right? Like we can do this ourselves, but the mental load that we carry just existing as a woman and now having to go through this and advocate for ourselves in this, space and, having people like Angela on board and you and Amanda and Deb, but we're advocating for something that, really should have already existed. But now our partners are on the other side going, I still don't know what the heck is happening. Like, why is she so mad at me all the time? What do you see in your practice when it comes to bringing your partners in?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that question. And it's, I always describe the woman in a family as the minister of infrastructure. So whatever we experience is not ours alone. It impacts everyone in the network around us, our partners, our children, the people that we experience in the workplace. And just before I answer your question, Amanda, I was really listening to what you were saying about, and Serena, about women in older generations. And when I was doing my coaching training, I lost my mom when she was 52. So we didn't have a chance to have these conversations. So I asked my grandmother, who was 92 at the time, she just turned 94, what her experience was like. And I wanted to tell the story because it was so powerful for me, because she looked at me and she said, "No one has ever asked me that question before." At 94 years old, she had never had the opportunity to talk about what her experience was or what all of those emotions were like. And when she started to think about it and tell me her story, she said all the same things that we are saying today: how hard it was, how isolating it was. She was a woman ahead of her time. She was an X-ray technician in the 1950s and 60s. She retired in the mid 80s. How it impacted her career and how it impacted her relationship. And so I just thought all of that story still exists. And it's so important that we make space for that to come forward as well, so that we know, like, this isn't, because sometimes we hear, why is this generation making such a big deal about it? We're not making a big deal about it. We're lending our voices to it.
There
We're
was no
voicing
space,
what has
right?
already existed.
And no community. I feel like the compassion that we have to have for the generation above us and what they had to go through silently, because not only was there no community, but likely no language to even describe
Exactly.
what was happening.
Yes. And then that no language is the theme that I see in partnerships. And, the experience I talk about the most was I was at the bank setting up my business account, and the bank manager came over and was like, well, tell me a little bit about your business. And so I started telling him, and he was like, I need you. My wife is going through this. And I don't know how to talk to her about it. And she doesn't know how to talk about it either. And so I care about her so much, but we're in this place where neither one of us knows how to interact with each other about this. And so that really is the key, is helping each partner. Amanda was saying about education, which is so important. No one understands what's happening with their body, so they have the language to communicate that, and help them to know how to communicate that, to really know their partner, because some partners need to know all the why in the background of what's happening. And some partners just need to know, how is this impacting you on a daily basis? And what can I do to help you? Because so much of what partners feel is just absolute helplessness. They're seeing their partner become somebody they don't recognize anymore, and they don't know how to talk about it, and they don't know what to do to support them. So just giving each person in that partnership the language that they need, so that they can communicate in the way that is caring and supportive for both of them.
Amanda, did you have something that you wanted to say as well and add to that?
Yeah, and I agree with everything Lisa was saying about like needing to get our partners on board. I had recently done a workshop in one of our local libraries. I had one guy show up. I was surprised. One man showed up with his wife, and I actually stood there in awe. And I'm like, thank you for coming. He was, well, things are changing at home. Might as well figure it out too. So I'm really glad that even men are starting to become part of the conversation. I'm just wondering too, I don't know, maybe for future shows, if there's any space or any ideas about including partners and resources for them, because we're really starting to see an uptick in men wanting to know about menopause. And I mean, even on my Instagram, there are guys popping up talking about menopause.
I think we all have a lot of experience in that. Lisa, why don't you go first and let us know, and then we'll pop over to Angela and Deb, because I think we all have a little bit of something that we want to say about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Amanda, you just reminded me, I did a session for the city of Barrie in the spring, and their fire chief came to that session. And I was so impressed by that commitment for him to be there, to one, I'm sure he was doing some learning for himself, but also to support what is predominantly a very male-dominated space, but to go and do that learning for the women who are on his service. And I thought that that was such a really brave act of leadership. It shouldn't be, and yet it is in this time. And so, Amanda, you're right. There's so many men who are wanting to enter into the conversation. And for the most part, it's coming from that place of pure curiosity of, I just don't know or understand what's happening. And we see in the data and in the research that this is one of the highest times in relationships for divorces. And I have had the heartbreaking experience of having women come to me and say, I wish I had found you before. I wish I had known I was in perimenopause. I'm now divorced. I don't really want to be divorced from my partner, but I was going through perimenopause and menopause. I had no idea what was happening to me. And now I'm in this place where I have to rebuild. And it's not what I wanted. It's just that I didn't know. And so we want to give partners the tools to be able to make informed choices. Sometimes leaving a relationship is absolutely the right move. But when you find yourself at the end of that process in a place that you didn't actually want to be, that's where we want to really make sure that those partnerships are supported so that they can make an informed choice.
Yeah. Angela, are you seeing a lot of that at your shows as well? Having the partners come in and the men wanting to have more of a conversation about this as well?
Most definitely online as well. Just recently, actually yesterday, we had a gentleman connect with us, and his wife was unable to attend the show, and he wants to make sure she gets the information, the education from the live stream. She really needs it, and he's there to support her. I live in a home that it's all male. There's a lot of testosterone, and I think they have a better understanding, but certainly my husband, he experienced those symptoms for a number of years and has a greater appreciation for what we as women go through. it will help us going forward if we have that support. And what we're planning on doing for the National Menopause Show, we're all also going to incorporate HR. So it's really important that it starts in the workplace. If your husband, in his workplace, he's going to learn more about it, but it's just education right across the board, because we as society, we as women need support, but our husbands, our spouses, they need support too, because, they're experiencing the negative impact of our symptoms as well.
Exactly. And, a lot of the work that I'm doing with couples isn't the idea that, there needs to be structure and flow in our relationships. There needs to be somebody who holds the structure. And it can be you. You can hold the structure for yourself and create that creative flow. But when you're in partnership, that oscillates, right? It goes back and forth. There's kind of a give and take between that. And if there's one part of that partnership that's really left in the dark, then there's no way that the communication can even happen, because there's no comprehension. We don't even know what's happening. So to have these conversations, you're right, within the workplace to start, which I think personally would be a really non-threatening kind of place to do it. It's so different for a man to sit down maybe with his workplace people and have these conversations and see everybody participating in something that might be, quote, mandatory. But you're going to learn something, and maybe you want to be there, but you don't want to pretend that you want to be there. And in a room full of women and feeling like you're just the firing squad, right? Like in front of the firing squad, which is what I find a lot when men come into the office with their partners. They think that it's going to be like that because that's just culturally what's ended up happening is, men don't know. But in this case, we don't know either. Like, we really are in this together, right? Deb, what did you see at the show when women came up to the booth and they were asking, like, what should we see first and who should we talk to? And, how do I talk to my partner about this? Or what was your experience at the show?
Well, I want to come back because I'm going to say at least 50% on our site for pleasure pods is men. And I'm going to say at least 35 to 40% of it is men buying it for their wives because they really want to help their wives. And what I find is that they don't mind sharing that either, because we reach out to a lot of our clients and they don't mind sharing that information with us. And let's be really honest here. Men are sexual beings, okay? I mean, this is just a known fact. They are. And so when that changes in their world and women are not communicating that, and as I talked to women at the show, I said, when you start having painful sex, you immediately go, oh, it's going to be painful. Dr. Kelly Casperson, she talks about this all the time. Men to learn and understand what the women are going through. Truthfully, what helped me, and I can only talk from my own experience. I'm not a doctor. Women still experience that, but they don't know how to get around it. And I did not know until I saw my naturopath. And she said, you have to try estrogen cream. That will help you with the pain. Because I was using pleasure pods and I keep everything. It doesn't take the pain away. It does help, but it doesn't take the pain away. That's not our product. But estrogen cream, it changed my life. My God, I don't have any more pain. So, but I do understand a lot of women can't do that. The workforce is the best avenue. As Angela mentioned, that's where a lot of men are, right? So to bring that conversation into the workforce and to bring the help that's needed so they can understand more of what's going to happen to the women in their workforce. I had one example, lovely lady with her husband was there. And I actually thanked him for coming with her. And I said, what made you want to come? And he goes, this is not just her journey. This is our journey. And if I know more, then we are a better partnership. That's what it's about, because it's a partnership, right? Marriage is a partnership. Married or not, union together is a partnership.
A lot of the moving forward for partners is just developing your sexual intelligence is what I like to call it. I talk a lot about sexual intelligence and intimate intelligence. And that's understanding that what you were is not what you are and it's not what you're going to be. And we have to move with the times all the time. So Lisa, just staying on this partner perspective, just for one more moment before we move on, what do you think one action that partners could take, whether it's the female, male, whether it doesn't matter who, what could we do this week? What could somebody listening to this week say or do for their partners that could help bring this conversation to light in a really kind of palatable, accessible way?
One of the things I always recommend is it's like building the foundation, and that's just taking one thing off your partner's plate. We have so many things that we are managing. And if your partner comes to you and says, "Hey, I see that you have so many things on your calendar this week. On Wednesday, I'm going to make dinner."
There is nothing sexier than somebody taking something off your mental load
Yes.
without having to be asked.
Exactly. And it's so easy. And I often say as well, sometimes men won't know what to take off the plate because there are certain things that their partners like to do or that help them feel in control. And so I say, if you're not sure what to do, ask one of their friends because they will be able to tell you what is a good thing to take off the plate.
Yeah, call up Julie on Tuesday and be like, "Girl, what can I do to help this week?"
Can be just literally as simple as that. Taking it like a one step further is Wednesday, I am going to like get the groceries, I'm going to make dinner, I'm going to do the laundry, and I've booked a massage for you. So all of the mental load of all of the things, because sometimes like my partner is lovely and he's so thoughtful, and every once in a while he'll do that but not take on the other jobs. And so while I'm having that massage, in my head, I'm like, okay, well, now when I get home, I need to make the list and I need to get groceries. And I'm still, like running through all those things. So that's why it's so important to do that portion of it, is to take the emotional and the physical load of the work and give you an opportunity to actually be able to relax. And so that's a really great foundation because then your partner sees that you are actually willing to take action because conversation's important, but we need to see how it's actually going to change in our
And
day to
that's how
day.
and that's how you build the trust then with your partner as well. Some men will come into my office and say things like, "Well, I did that. I did the laundry last Tuesday." And I go, "Cool. Thanks, John. You did the laundry once in 12 years. She doesn't trust it's going to happen again."
Exactly.
Like this needs to be consistent that you're going to show up even in the conversation, right? Sometimes. Moving forward just a little bit, we're talking about the mental load and just what we do end up having to handle and going in through perimenopause and menopause. Our mental health and just the way that our brains are functioning is going to be completely different than what it was. So anybody listening, if you feel that, just understand that you're in a space with millions of other women going through it, and every single person born as a woman is going to go through that as well. Angela, what mental health resources do you think resonated most with the people who came in to the show?
For women, there's many different facets of this journey, and mental health is a big part of it when we're not feeling like ourselves. And the feedback I received was women feel like they're heard. Many women came up to me and wanted introductions, and I gave introductions to doctors where they wanted to have one-on-one conversations. The National Menopause Show represents is access to care, and that's talking to doctors, just seeing what clinics are out there and how best they can be supported.
I just want to say, just to everybody listening, I actually witnessed Angela taking some of these experts by the hand and walking them from booth to booth and to woman. And if anybody had gone up to you and been like, "I really want to meet," the one thing that I did notice is that you took the time and you were like, come with me right now, and I'm going to introduce you to that. So thank you so much for being so open and willing to allow people that space to have access to these professionals who seem so out of reach.
I have a responsibility to connect women with other women. And it's really important that we as women support one another because that's going to make us it's better space for all of us. And the doctors and healthcare professionals that we've brought on board are more than willing to connect with the audience. In the United States, I will just touch on this very briefly. The United States, we see all these doctors out there and they have a huge platform and they're on the Oprah show and so forth, isn't that wonderful? We are grassroots. I represent the everyday woman. I'm 58 years old. I'm not more special than anyone else. I've experienced many of those symptoms and still do to some degree, but it's real life. And we owe it to ourselves to be educated, but also to have the opportunity to feel at ease when we walk into a space like the National Menopause Show. It's a trusted resource. It's a trusted space. And women care about women. We really do.
We do. I appreciate that. Amanda, just to touch on, we just talked about mental health and we talked about, women supporting women and all of these things that, cause a lot of heaviness in our lives, and maybe we question ourselves a little bit. But fluctuating hormones are going to impact your anxiety, your mood, sleep, brain fog, everything that touches our lives. And so many people are going to say, HRT is for when you are 60. But when do you think, in your opinion, when are we supposed to be considering all of this therapy, meds, HRT, estrogen, vaginal estrogen? Tell the ladies how and when we're supposed to start this. Is it in your 20s? Is it in your 60s?
So before I get to your question, I wanted to like kind of backpedal on something that Angela was saying, how we as women really need to take care of each other. And I remember coming on Lisa's podcast and we had a conversation about even us as people in the menopause space, how we need to connect and take care of each other as menopause clinicians and not be mean girls, right? Unfortunately, we see some of that out there in the menopause space where like some people are just feeling like, hey, I was here first. Where are all these people coming from? I think it's really important to celebrate and understand what we all bring to the table and where to refer to and who to refer out to if something feels like it's beyond our scope. So I really felt that at the menopause show that for the most part, women were really people at different booths and stuff. We were really celebrating each other, what we brought to the menopause space, what this provider did versus this person, this coach, this other provider. It was actually quite nice to see how everyone was even like interacting with each other in different booths. And I really loved seeing that. But to answer the question now, Serena, as far as like when women should start considering HRT, I mean, it's so individual. Everyone's bodies are individual. How we present in perimenopause is very individual. Our medical histories are very individual. The notion that a woman needs to wait until she's done with her periods, that's a myth. You can actually start hormone replacement therapy before that happens. And for many women, they tend to go to the doctors when they have like an abrupt change in their periods. That's usually one of the first symptoms that they realize, oh, okay, something must be up. I need to go see my doctor. My periods are really, really heavy. I don't feel good. Maybe their PMS symptoms are worsening. And then that's usually a trigger for them to go speak with their doctors. Unfortunately, for a lot of women, they don't understand that this actually is early menopause. And it's something that they actually can check with their physician as far as like what type of hormone replacement might be appropriate at that time. For some people, it might actually be birth control. They might still need that contraception and regulation of the menstrual period, whereas HRT will not do contraception, but it also not as effective as controlling the cycles as well. For some women, they actually start experiencing really intense hot flashes or other symptoms that may need to be addressed as well. So it really depends on what that woman is experiencing. The important part is women need to understand that they don't need to have their last menstrual period before they can have the discussion about HRT. That discussion can happen, way before that.
What about vaginal estrogen? I always laugh because I think we should be putting vaginal estrogen at like 25. When you start slapping that hyaluronic acid on,
I might be out of my league saying this, but I honestly feel that vaginal estrogen should be as available as, ointment for yeast infections. Yeah, it's so localized, safe for 99% of women, and the dose is so low in it.
Amanda, for the women who are listening, what does vaginal estrogen do for you? Because so many women will come to me and say, because I'm in the sex world, right? So they're like, I don't need to put anything in there. I'm always good to go. I'm lubricated. You don't understand. That's not what it's for. So why don't you tell the listeners? Because we use these terms a lot in our world, but not everybody listening is going to know what we're talking about, right?
The vaginal estrogen really is for the tissues of the vagina and the vulva. Those tissues change with the loss of estrogen. They become thinner, they become more brittle, like they don't stretch as easily. We lose the elasticity, we lose the moisture down there. Our pH changes, so we're more susceptible to urinary tract infections, yeast infections, bacterial vaginosis, you name it. The bacteria and the bugs will start growing because our pH is off. Believe it or not, estrogen keeps that in balance. It helps with the muscles and the fascia in the pelvis. So it helps keep the pelvis healthy in general, the organs that need the pelvis muscles to stay up and all of those tendons and stuff to stay in place. It's going to help with keeping those tissues healthy so that you don't experience the painful sex or even just painful with insertion on anything that's inserted. Doesn't even
The
have to be
exterior as
about
well,
sex.
right?
Yes, absolutely. We get the burning, the itching, there's a condition that I'm not going to try and pronounce at this time, but there's a conditioning that actually causes thickening of the vulva if you're scratching it too much.
Right. Lichen sclerosis.
Yes, thank you. There's so many reasons why every woman should have vaginal estrogen and use vaginal estrogen as part of their care.
Somebody gave me a visual one time, and it was such an easy visual for me. They were like, imagine taking a whole bunch of rubber elastic bands and kind of meshing them all together like a bouncy hammock, and now dry out all of that elastic band. We all know what a dry elastic rubber band looks like and how brittle it is and how quickly it can snap and how, it can shred. They were like, imagine your pelvic floor and the inside of your vaginal walls kind of looking like that, the tissues. And using vaginal estrogen is going to help keep all of that. We say moisturized, but it is medical. It is a medical ingredient, but keeping all of that very
Mhm.
hydrated, moisturized, and strong. And with that visual, I thought to myself, okay, I got to start doing those Kegels. Do you know what I think we should incorporate into our podcast, ladies? Is Kegel break. So every time somebody switches over, we should be doing 5 Kegels. I'll count you down.
And we also need to understand too, it's not just estrogen that's down there. We also have receptors for testosterone and other androgen. So some women don't get relief with estrogen alone. They actually need to add a DHEA, which will convert to androgens in the vagina. So out there called intrarosa, which is a DHEA, which is a precursor hormone, and you can use that to help also generate more hormone response down in the pelvic regions and in the vulva vaginal areas.
Amazing. Deb, why don't you chime in a little bit and just give us a couple of practical tips? We know the Pleasure Pods is there and we're not taking away the pain with Pleasure Pods. We're really open about that, but your daily comfort and your daily moisture, just what are some practical tips for sensitive skin, kind of irritation or anything that you're having on your vulva or in your vaginal tissues?
Okay, so I'm going to get to that question, but I want just to quickly talk about mental health because truthfully, I'm 63. When I went into perimenopause, there was nothing there for me. No one knew what was going on. No one was talking about it. So when I went to my doctor, guess what happened to me? You need to get on an antidepressant.
Yeah.
Okay.
That happened to me too.
That's our world, right? I did go on it and it did help with some of the emotions, right? But the other scary thing that happened to me is that when I went into menopause and it went later on, my ADHD went nuts. I finally got diagnosed and I went through that whole thing of who am I? Who am I? It changed my world. I didn't know who I was. I was very depressed. I was trying to understand more about it and how it was affecting my world. My relationship alone with Brian went really bad. Like it was going south. I mean, I'm already dealing with menopause. Everything was disconnecting, including myself. So I will get into that a little later in another episode because I think it's really important, the mental health part and, ADHD and all affects women in menopause. I also want to mention just quickly because there was one woman that really impacted me. This woman was on HRT. She was on HRT in perimenopause, and her doctor put her on it. She was on it for 10 years, and her doctor told her to get off of it. She went off of it, and it was the worst thing that happened to her. And I said, so why don't you go back on it? She goes, I'm afraid. My doctor is saying, yeah, you can go back on it, but I don't recommend it. That's just another example of what's happened to women in those cases. And I said, then find another doctor. It's like anything. When you have something happen to you in any other type of incident, an accident, whatever it might be, you always go for 1, 2, 3 opinions. Go and find another doctor. Find a naturopath. Find someone through the Menopause Society that can help you through this, because now fear has taken her to move away from that. Listen, I was really proud to be there at the Menopause Show, because when I created Pleasure Pods back 7 years ago, when I couldn't find anything in the market, there are more out there now for women. It's not just Pleasure Pods. There are other great lubricants now that are designed for midlife women. I was proud to see them at the show. So there are other avenues for women now that are going through the perimenopause and menopause. I pride ourselves in our brand because we are different. We're plant-based. There's a lot of women have a sensitivities and just can't use some of these, no matter what brand they are. It's great because our product is a lubricant. It's also a moisturizer. My vulva's now getting more dry. As we joked about it at the show, it's the lip balm for the lower lips, right?
Every time the girls would walk by, Jem would be like, it's like a lip balm for both sets of lips.
Exactly.
Everyone was like, oh my God. And they would come into the booth.
I had a lot of ladies coming there and saying, I got this product last time. It's still sitting in my drawer. I'm willing to admit that. And I said, guys, do you know how we go through menopause? It's different stages, perimenopause, menopause, but it's lots of different stages. Pleasure Pods is for different things. In menopause and you still have a libido, use it as a lubricant. But when you get into menopause, maybe you're not wanting to use it as a lubricant. Then use it for the dryness of your inner walls. Use it for your vulva. Then use it for your skin. There's certain spots that are drier, right? Use it for different stages of your life. Young people, this product is not just for people in perimenopause and menopause. This product is for all people that are looking for something that is all natural, that they can count on and know that they're not putting chemicals and things in their or on their bodies that's not comfortable for them. So this is a lubricant that is for everybody.
And we did have a lot of people come up and tell us their personal stories and just how much the show helped. Angela, is there a story that stood out to you that maybe you'd like to share with us?
There was a lot of stories. One in particular, which I found fascinating, was a relative of mine, and she was a head nurse in a hospital for many, many years. She's retired now, but we were talking about mental illness, and she said to me, in the 60s, what they did with, she called it menopause mental illness. They prescribed these women antidepressants. She said a lot of women were institutionalized, and she said they were zombied. They ate at a certain time. They went outside at a certain time. They never got out of these institutions. I was shocked. Like, I've heard things, but she saw it firsthand. And she said even postpartum depression, they were doing the same thing in the 60s. So we've come a long way. And we have more ground to cover. But I think it's really important that women understand that there's help there, there's support there. You're not alone.
Yeah, and I think we saw a lot of that. Not that specific story, of course, but a lot of people coming up to the Pleasure Pods booth and just saying, oh my God, the show is a conduit for conversation, right? It's giving me the permission to have these conversations.
What I found fascinating, even still at the Menopause Show, was just how many women are still afraid to talk about their bodies. I'm naturally going into nurse mode, and from a medical standpoint, this is what the product can help you with. And a lot of them are just standing there in awe, and they're like, okay, I didn't even realize like all those things can happen down there, right? And how important it was to moisturize. Even trying to open up that conversation with women to talk about your bodies, you can tell that it's just something that's still so taboo. And I definitely ran into a lot of that at the show too.
It's easy to forget that not everybody is comfortable having this level of conversation. And so that's why, Angela, the Menopause Show is so important to model what it looks like having these conversations and what it feels like. Right, that deep sense of relief and connection when you are when I facilitate a session, every single time, someone has come up to me at the end of it and said, "Lisa, I thought I was in the early stages of dementia. I thought, like, insert disease after this." And so the breath, like, it's that first breath that a person takes when they realize, "Oh, there is actually something else going on here, and this connection is so important, and this space to have the conversations is so necessary." Oh, these are not everyday conversations for most people. And that's why this work is so important, to convert it to an everyday conversation where I'm just as comfortable talking about my vagina and vulva as I am talking about my nose and my elbow.
I have people come up and actually shed tears. Say, people are like, well, I don't have a partner. And I go, well, you are your own best lover. And your love for yourself doesn't stop at menopause. And a lot of the time, there were tears that came out of these women, and they were saying, thank you so much for giving me the permission to even access the pleasure in my body, because everyone is telling me that things are going wrong in my body, that I need to fix things in my body, that I need to take medicine for my body, that I'm not exercising enough. And I'm sitting there going, your body is still so capable of pleasure and intimacy, and orgasm is so good for you, and you're allowed to still want that. You didn't age out. Nobody ages out of their intimate pleasure. You don't age out of wanting that intimate connection, the sexual connection, or even just that mental connection that you have with a partner or even with yourself. So just as we're winding down, I'd like for each of us to give one quick tip that they think would move them forward. So, as I'm talking right now, I'll say, if you're having these conversations with your partner, it's really important to go up to somebody, or even for yourself or your friends, whatever that is, and just say what's happening. I always say what's happening in the moment, because sometimes it's really hard to talk about what happened in the past and how you're going to feel in the future. But in the moment, you could go to your partner and literally say, I have no idea why I yelled at you today, or I have no idea why I forgot X, Y, and Z. This is what I'm feeling in this moment. Somatically, we're just going to sit in the moment and just say, I don't need you to fix it, but I just need you to be able to be a person that I can have these conversations with. And maybe we can come up with resources together, and maybe we can't. When it comes to sexuality, to sit with your partner and say, I know that I have felt really disconnected from you, and the longer we go without that connection, the harder it's going to be to get back. I would love to hold your hand walk today, or I would love to sit down next to you on the sofa tonight while we read our books and touch legs together. We don't have to go further than that right away, but I would really love to have that connection with you. I just don't know where to start, because I'm afraid that if I start, it's going to have to go all the way, and that makes me nervous, right? Depending on what's going on in your body. But we need everyone listening out there, if you do feel that disconnect with yourself or your partner from that side of your body, and the word sex is going to throw people, and you're going to get that little knot in your stomach every single time I say it, but I'm going to keep saying it, and I'm going to keep saying vulva, and I'm going to keep saying vagina, and I'm going to keep saying, pleasure and self-pleasure, because you need to have that. That connection with your body is going to help not get rid of any symptom, not get rid of menopause, no, but you can access pleasure and have a really good time navigating your way through, if that feels good for you, with all of the resources that are out there as well. Okay, so I think that it's going to be really important as well. Take a hand, put it on your vulva, take a hand, put it on your heart, give yourself a really gentle, soft breast massage, and continue to stay in contact with that side of yourself, because it might not be your 25-year-old body, and you might not be having sex the way you did when you were 30, and you might not be flipping around, and your knees might not work the way that they did, and your hips might hurt, and nothing might feel the same. But with some sexual intelligence and with these conversations, you can find the next step of what is going to look good for you in your body, in your partnership, in your sex life. So that's my tip. Lisa, how about you when it comes to partnerships? What would you give for, a quick tip? What could you do today? Again, I think we touched on that earlier, but how would you summarize that for the people listening?
Yeah, it's just an extension of what you already said. When you said listen and not fix, that's it. For partners, the positioning is as a listener. And a lot of the time that's challenging, because men in particular, they really want to fix, right? It's like, tell me the thing, and then I'm going to fix it. And this menopause, perimenopause is so nuanced that is not what we're looking for. So let yourself be in the very vulnerable space of just listening and saying things like, I didn't know. And know that that doesn't diminish your value. What that does is acknowledge, wow, I had no idea what that experience was. So listen, be willing to say, I didn't know, and let's find some solutions together.
Right. And I'm going to add to that super quick is that, a lot of the men in our lives, if we have men in our lives specifically, they really love admiration, right? The hero complex, it's actually how men want to show us. It's how they want us to show them how we respect and appreciate them. So it comes in the form of fixing, right? And it's usually tactical. It's like, I will fix this and I will do this and I will find a solution. But as the people going through menopause, if you can show admiration for the fact that your husband or your partner just sat and listened and tried not to fix, if you say, thank you so much for doing that, thank you so much for not trying to fix what I just said, and you just sat and held that space for me, that's going to show that admiration as well. And you're going to get that feedback loop even better when it comes through. So Deb, what do you think would be your last?
I think the biggest thing, and we will do an episode around this, is that when it comes to us going into menopause, and I'm going to talk sexually, it looks very different on how you interact sexually with your partner than it did in your 20s, 30s, and 40s. And I think that we all need to get a little bit more adventurous. There's a lot of different toys out there. And if we're not incorporating that in our world in 50 up, I really think we're doing ourselves a disservice in our own relationship, even self-pleasure, right? Because I'm going to be the first one to admit it. When I met Brian at 53, I had no clue about anything because of just my own ignorance. And I was told not to play with myself. That was dirty. You don't do that. I had no clue about my body, but I can tell you clitoris playing sexually is the best orgasm you could ever have. If you're feeling painful sex, don't go have painful sex. There's other ways of having orgasms or just enjoying this connection. It doesn't have to be an orgasm every time. It's the connection. So there's so many different ways that you can have pleasure that doesn't create pain, and there's so much fun that you can have. We become adventurous with travel when we get older, doing things. Why can't we become adventurous when it comes to enjoying pleasure?
Amen. You're going to take my job over. Give me your pleasure pods. I'll do your spiel. I absolutely, I love that. I love it. 80% of people with vulvas are not going to have any sort of orgasm with internal penetration. It really is your clitoral complex, and people just don't understand that. So, but we will do a full episode on that with visuals. I tried to grab my visuals while you were chatting. They're too far away and I can't get up and move, but I throw the clitoris in front of everybody's face and I go, look how big your boner can be. And it is an amazing space to be in. So on that fun note, though, Angela, what would a quick tip for women would be?
I think the biggest message is to seek information, education, and don't rely on Google. It's podcasts like this, shows the National Menopause Show. It's a trusted source. I think it's really important that you receive evidence-based, expert-led information from the experts that can support it with science. And I think I can't top what any of you said about your partners and so forth, but I will say communication is huge. And our symptoms, while they overlap with all of us, there's so many more there's so many more symptoms that are out there that we don't necessarily understand for ourselves, personally. And I think it's about educating ourselves. And I think we're stepping into a world that's becoming more compassionate towards women. And I think our spouses will become more passionate and more supportive towards our next stage, whether that's perimenopause, menopause, or postmenopause.
Amazing. Well, I think we are going to close it down there for today, Angela. I want to thank you so much first of all, for being here today. I know that the weekend must have been absolute chaos in your head, and you still took the time to be here. So we really appreciate that. And for putting on this show. And it's not a small show, you guys. If you are in any area where you can get to one of these National Menopause shows, go. You are not going to regret having that time and space around the women, the professionals, and even if you get a chance to meet Angela, she'll introduce you to anybody that you need to know. So thank you for listening to Unmuted. We are here to answer and talk about all of the things that nobody wanted you to talk about. You can subscribe on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube and send your anonymous questions or even confessions or guest ideas to us. We have an anonymous link in our show notes as well, and we can cover those in future episodes. In our show note as well is a survey for men from Lisa, our menopause consultant. So please take the time, if you are listening, if you are a man, or if your partner is, and send that link along so that we can get as much information about our partners as well. Lisa, Amanda, Angela, and Deb, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Serena Haynes, your everything to do with sex coach and your host of Unmuted. We will talk to you again next month.